And welcome to a quarantine edition of Two Dudes and a Mexican. I'm your host, Shamduna Victor Salazar. Somewhere in the interspace of the internet is my co-host, some other dude named Peter Soprano.
What up, what up?
And then somewhere in the interspace, my guy, resident Mexican, David Quinones.
Órale, mi gente.
Oh, wow. So we're back, guys. I think we're going to have some interesting things to talk about. I'm definitely want to get into the documentary, episodes 5 and 6. I thought they were really good, and I just have some things I want to touch on. I also want to talk about one more tidbit about the draft. Speak a little bit of pop culture that happened with football this week. Then get into something that I think is going to be fun in terms of what we're watching during quarantine, the limits of how we're so bored, but we're figuring out how to, keep our time and keep our mind occupied. But to start it off, episodes 5 and 6, The Last Dance, I mean, it's pretty much what we've all been watching and what we've all been waiting for. This episode focused solely kind of on Michael Jordan. And it kind of dug deep into some of the skeletons of his life in terms of the dream team, in terms of the gambling.
Yeah.
And it also spoke about his relationship with the media in the 93 season, while still kind of tailoring up what's going to happen in the 98 season. So, Pete, let me start with you. In terms of Michael Jordan and the way the media portrayed him in that 93 season, I want to ask you, did you think that was his primary reason that he retired? He was just fed up with dealing with the media.
Yeah, I do. I think every day he was getting the same questions. Every day he was getting – I mean, this guy was the busiest guy in the world at the time. I mean, everybody was on him. He had just won his third championship. And you know what? You got people in from the time you leave your hotel to the time you get back to your hotel. And even when you're in your hotel, you got people in the bottom of your hotel waiting for you to come out, cheering your name every day. So it's so much pressure, so much scrutiny. Eye is on you at all times. It's like at that time he was in the league for 8 years. At that point, you're like, after doing this year after year after year, I need some type of break. So I do think that the combination of that with all the things that people were getting on him about, whether it's the gambling stuff and more stuff ended up going on with about his father and everything like that, all that stuff combining into one, I think is what got him away. He's like, you know what? Let me just take a break. Hopefully some of this will settle down, then I'll come back later.
Dave, the documentary primarily focused on an election that was happening in his native North Carolina, where he didn't endorse the black candidate, and the white candidate was been known to be a racist bigot. And basically, Michael Jordan's response to not kind of endorsing the black candidate was, well, Republicans buy sneakers too. Yeah. And to this day, he still, kind of says, yeah, well, Republicans do buy sneakers too. Yeah. And the one thing that stuck out about this documentary was when I believe they played a clip of someone saying that Michael Jordan will never be remembered like Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Dave, what sense do you think in that nature, what is Michael Jordan thinking? Obviously 2018 is different time. 2020 is different times than 1993 or 92. But what do you think his mind process was, not endorsing the candidate and at the same time saying Republicans buy sneakers too?
Yeah, listen, I really think that if he could have taken those words back, I think he would have. Probably weren't the best choice of words. But, obviously you see how much of a competitor he was. So, he didn't want to get into the politics. He didn't want to get into, all the – because listen, guys, let's be honest here. Back then, even now, politics are dirty, man. It takes a certain person to get into politics, take action. And, rightfully so, he applauded Muhammad Ali. I mean, for taking up action and doing what he did when it came to politics. That's something that he wasn't going to do because he was primarily focused on sports, man. He was a winner. He was primarily focused on winning. He didn't want to focus on politics. And listen, I think, I think, there are at some time, in some point in history where, a professional figure has taken up a stand and it's made a difference. Michael Jordan, chose not to. Again, I don't think those are the right choice of words that he used. I think if he could have taken them back and maybe changed them, he probably would have. So, and I think, with the pressure of everything, going around him, being an athlete, trying to make something big, happen in Chicago. I just think that he didn't want to get involved in something with politics. So, and his choice was not to. So, but listen, again, he gave props to Muhammad Ali for taking up a stand, but that's not something that he was prepared to do at that time.
Pete, let me pose this question to you, man. Michael Jordan in the 90s and even in the 2000s was probably the most famous person in the world. Hands down, the mantle have been passed from like Muhammad Ali to Michael Jordan as the most important sports figure and famous person in the world.
Yeah.
Do you think in those times, especially when it comes to his hometown, his home state, and he says he grew up in an era where there was a lot of racism and that he literally just had to play basketball and baseball to like kind of keep that out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel an athlete of that stature has a responsibility to opine on things? And on top of that, it is his home state. You know what I mean? Like, you think he could have done more in that instance? And do you think that's the responsibility of an athlete? I know there's differences of opinions. I just want to hear yours on that one.
I think he could have done more, but I also ask a lot of people to look themselves in the mirror too, because a lot of people will vote for a certain person because of their party, or they'll vote for a certain person because they're a certain color. They won't really know what is actually going on. So one thing about him actually not making a stand on that, I do understand it a bit, because you're influencing a huge amount of people. As you said, he was known to everybody. So whatever he says is going to swing the vote, whether somebody like Oprah today did when Obama was going. So something he said can influence something so drastically that if you're not really on the end of knowing who you want from politics to say, all right, this person can really make a difference, I'm really going to endorse this person, then I don't think you should be endorsing somebody. You shouldn't endorse somebody without actually knowing enough about him to really put everything behind him. As he said, he did contribute money. His mom had talked to him about it, so he did contribute money. But in terms of endorsing, that means so much towards an election that unless you have more facts and more knowledge about the situation, about who you're actually voting for, I don't think you should endorse people, because you're completely flipping something to somebody that you may know. Now, obviously, the opponent in that race we knew was a bigot, and everything came out about him. But you still don't know about the other candidate. You don't know if maybe there's a third lesser known candidate that maybe was better than both of them that maybe he can endorse. But the main point about it is that he just wasn't knowledgeable enough about the situation to throw his big endorsement in behind him.
But don't you think in that instance, when his mother's basically pleaded him to like endorse this guy, at the end of the day, it's not like he was endorsing the president and so forth, but it was something towards his home country. His home state, excuse me. And he grew up in that era and he knew what was going on. Don't you think just because it's his home state, like there should have been a bigger responsibility, or view the nature of Charles Barkley saying basketball players shouldn't be role models?
Well, to speak on both of that, I don't think basketball should be role models. However, I do think they should hold themselves to a higher standard. I don't think that you should depend on a basketball player, because you'll be disappointed almost every single time. However, I do think they should hold themselves to a higher standard because they have an influence on so many people. So regarding him doing that, I'll also go back to what I said before again. And you mentioned that this wasn't a presidential election. A lot of people actually will do a little bit of research on the presidential election, and they won't really do much research at all on a Senate or a local or a mayor or somebody that's just a local community advisor. So it's almost like, and they said, as it goes down the ranking, it's closer to what affects you. But people pay less attention to the ones that affect you the most, rather than just the top person that's the figurehead.
Listen, the one thing I'll give LeBron James is that he is really an activist, and he does speak his mind, and he does have that opinion. Dave, do you think because the eras were different back then, where now basketball players really do have a bigger platform or have a more acceptable platform to speak out than Michael Jordan had back in the 90s, that might have been why Michael kind of was like, I really don't want to do this, so I'm going to just stay away from it?
I mean, listen, it is a different time when you compare, times. I mean, obviously social media is huge now. It wasn't back then. So listen, Michael Jordan was a special person. I just think that he really, truly believed in what he was doing. And like Pete said, he totally wasn't probably, in on that politician's views. He probably didn't know much, and he probably just didn't even want to get involved. So, listen, to take a stand is a big thing to do, especially, now it's different, like I said, because of social media. But listen, back then, I mean, it was tough for an athlete. So I think so. But I mean, I think it would. I think it's definitely, again, right now with all the social media, all the fans, I think it's, tougher. So.
And Pete, before I move on, do you think the pressure that Muhammad Ali faced and the scrutiny that Muhammad Ali faced was primarily an issue why, athletes in the 80s and 90s kind of didn't want to touch politics or want to be outspoken in that sense?
Yeah, they saw how he was treated, they saw how he was looked at, and how he's perceived by the outside world towards his decisions on making something like that political and voicing himself more about it and being outspoken about the war and everything. And I think people didn't want to be crucified for it. So I think he pretty much took the punishment for all the people that may have said something and they changed their mind and said, what, I don't want to go with all this.
I mean, that's fair. That's fair. So, moving on within the documentary, the last thing we should touch on, I know we spoke about this last week, but the Isaiah Thomas Dream Team thing. Michael Jordan said it last week, or said it in episodes 3 and 4, and now reiterating itself in 5 and 6 that it wasn't him that kept them off the Dream Team. So, being that we had 2 weeks to take in his statements, Isaiah's been on every sports show known to man since the documentary aired. Do we believe Michael here? It wasn't Michael that kept them off?
No.
I don't think it was totally him. He might have had some influence, but, I think others had influences as well. I mean, listen, Isaiah Thomas wasn't the most loved guy in the league, obviously. So I think he probably played a bigger role, if anything, but I think it was a combination of others.
I'm gonna put out a disclaimer to the listeners. Both these guys are Bulls fans, so take it with a grain of salt. They're gonna say it was Karl Malone. They're gonna say
but I just said it. I agreed. I said I did think that I think he was lying. So I think he did have the main part of getting him.
Oh, you said he was lying. You said he was lying.
Yeah, I said I don't believe him.
Right.
You said, do I believe him? I said no. I think that, listen, him and Magic had the most influence on the team. Him and Isaiah and him was having a little bit of a back and forth with Magic, but Michael had final say. So,
but it wasn't totally. I think. I mean,
listen, I honestly think they may have taken a poll of some people, and maybe it was like 40% of the team or 30% of the team might have said no, but Michael's vote is going to weigh a lot more than just his 10% of the team. So I think it weighed towards that. Michael may have said, the first thing he asked was who's going to play on the team. So we obviously know.
You know what Michael did? You know what Michael did? This is what Michael did. This is what I got from the documentary. When they asked him, do you want to play on the Dream Team? He pulled the classic, who all gonna be there?
Yeah, exactly.
The shit we text for each other. Yo, come through. Who's there? Who's all gonna be there?
Exactly.
Michael did the who all gonna be there before it even existed. He's like, so who's playing?
Yeah, and they answered him back. They said, not the guy that you think so. So they know it's gonna take him out.
Well, yeah. Listen, I think Michael had everything to do with not wanting Isaiah on there, and it's still a travesty. But in terms of the actual Dream Team, the documentary focused on a pickup game, probably the greatest game ever played. You know how in Rocky, after Rocky 3, Apollo Creed and Rocky have a sparring session, closed doors. That's probably the greatest fight of the Rocky era, and we'll never know how it went.
Yep.
But we kind of got a little insight onto how this scrimmage, which was Charles and Magic versus Michael,
Monte
probably
Carlo.
the greatest game ever played, and we never got to see it.
And it got played
Dave.
at Monte Carlo.
They played at Monte Carlo. Dave, Charles Barkley, Magic Johnson, they were up 8 points, talking trash to Michael. Then it happened. Why would you incite the Giant? The Giant was sleeping.
I don't know. I mean, listen, sometimes you're out of your comfort zone, I guess, and you start talking smack, and you don't do that to the greatest player ever, to play the game. So yeah, I really like that part of the documentary, man, and a shame that we couldn't see it, obviously, and I don't know if they have a recording of the full game, man. Because
I'd pay to see that.
I mean, someone's got to have tape, right?
Yeah, for
I mean,
real.
There was tape. There's tape. They showed highlights of it.
Yeah.
There's got to be tape. I want to see this game in its entirety. Like
So do I.
ESPN should pay for whatever it takes to put that on.
It'll be the most watched game ever.
I can only imagine. I mean, we heard some of the stuff that was being said in the documentary, so I can only imagine, what the real stuff was. Oh man, I mean,
He said they moved Chicago Stadium to Monte Carlo to give Michael.
Listen, ESPN should pay whatever it has in the budget. They keep showing Monday Night Football games that I don't care about.
Yeah.
Pay whatever it is. Get the whole footage of that game, even if it's on a camcorder or whatever. Like, we need to see that. We need to see that. And we need to see it, right after the documentary. Like, I need to see that game.
Yeah, seriously.
So, the one thing I did want to bring up, you noticed that Patrick Ewing was on Michael Jordan's team. That was, the only time Patrick won anything in the NBA. My guy Patrick, man.
Yeah, you heard Patrick say he's not watching the documentary. He was like, yo, I don't want to live through that 90s again.
I don't either. I didn't want to see that. I didn't want to see that 1993 Eastern Conference final. I don't want to see Charles Smith.
Charles Smith.
I fucking hate Charles Smith.
I actually
3
forgot,
layups, bro.
For a quick second, I forgot about that. Then as soon as I saw the tape coming, I'm like, oh, man, it's coming out.
Listen, I'm not going to say anything bad about Charles Smith. Fuck Charles Smith, all right? That was the only time. Listen. I knew the Knicks weren't going to win the series until they won a game in Chicago, and that just never happened. Didn't matter.
That was the game.
That was the game. I even thought if they would have won 7, I still think Chicago would have won in 7. They had to win one. How does Charles Barkley and his sons win 2 games in Chicago? You can't win 1. Oh, my God.
Winning the first 2 games, so you got all the momentum.
As a Knicks fan, those 15 minutes were pretty hard to watch. It was hard to see Patrick get yammed on by Scotty. But it is what it is. I mean, it was a great rivalry.
You just talked about exciting the dragon and the beast and everything. And all the New York papers is writing about Michael being down in AC, pissing him off more.
Excellent segue to my next point, Peter, because the documentary focused on that game too. Because Michael went down to AC with his father, supposedly. And I guess he left right after the game. It must have been an afternoon game. I remember playoff games being played in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And he went to AC. Was spotted at AC to about 11:30, 12:30. That's what the paper said. Michael says a different story. And then the next day, Michael has a gambling problem. Michael this, Michael that. I mean, he kind of likes to gamble. He said that. Right? But Dave, I'm gonna put this towards you. Is that did that problem that he have, or that vice, quote unquote, kind of ruin his reputation, in a sense?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, because listen, we're still talking about him till this day as the greatest basketball player to ever live. I mean, listen, he's human. That's the biggest thing. We're all human. We all have vices. We all have our skeletons, our closet, so to speak. So he's not perfect. So and I think that was one of the toughest things for him to deal with. Everybody has to have their out, right? And I think he even said it during the documentary, everybody wanted to be Mike, like Mike, right? I want to be like Mike, but you don't know how tough it was probably to be him. With all the pressure that, the media, the politics, people trying to, have him, take a stand. I can only imagine, how tough it would have been, from from when he woke up, to when he went to, whatever game he needed to play, to when he left the arena till his hotel room. It must have been crazy. It must have been tough to live a life like that. So he even said it, how tough it was.
Pete, did you think it was a problem? Do you think Michael has a gambling problem?
Well, I'll put it his way. I have a competition problem.
You believe that? See, this is what I'm talking about with you Bulls fans. This is what I'm talking about with you Bulls fans.
Hold on,
I'll
say this though. I'll say this. I don't think it ruined his reputation, but I do think it Nick in his armor. I think that people will always bring that up. People that want to, there's a lot of people that I know that say that when he retired the first time, it was because he had gambling debts and people wanted to pretty much injure his family if he didn't retire from the league and all that stuff. So he'll always hear that for the rest of his career. There'll always be somebody to bring that up. So I don't think it's going to ruin his image because obviously he's still making millions. He's still loved by a lot of people. But I think it will be something that will be with him the rest of his career and people will talk about. So
you didn't think he had a problem?
Maybe
Listen,
a little bit.
This is what he said. This is what he said in the documentary. He says, it's not like my wife left me. It's not like I lost my house. It's not like all this other stuff, right? To me, he was kind of denying it there. He was kind of denying his problem that he really does have, or he did have. I'm not sure if he's still a big gambler, but when I saw that, I was like, Mike, come on, Mike. Come on, man. Come on, Mike. Like, I get it. $10,000 isn't but $100 or $500 to you, Mike.
Yeah.
But when you're leaving a playoff series to go gamble, I think you might have a problem. Just saying.
That one was a little bad. Driving 3 hours south from Manhattan, New York area to go all the way down to AC. Yeah, that's a little bit too much.
Listen, that guy, that's the GOAT. He can do whatever he wants.
Oh, he can do whatever he wants. These freaking Bulls fans, man. I tell you, these Bulls fans don't want any dark light shine on their man Michael. You did. I think Dave's going a little too easy.
Dave still has his jersey behind him. He's wearing the jersey.
I know Dave still has both. He's got his 45, his 23. He's got his number 9 USA basketball jersey hanging around somewhere.
Yeah, that's a hot jersey. I wish I had that one.
Dave, do you have Michael's North Carolina jersey too? His high school one?
No, I never got that.
You sure?
He's just wearing the North Carolina blue now, though.
Yeah, you are. Wow. I bet if I go to your house, David, you have every pair of Michael Jordan shoes.
No. Twice. There's never a sneakerhead.
Oh, okay.
Never.
Believe it or not. People think that. All right. I'll let you live there. But all right, man, listen. I think Mike had a problem. It's all good. He's still the GOAT. Fine.
Yeah.
Now, what I did want to get into is episodes 1, 2, I believe it was episode 2, focused on Scottie and his contract negotiations, right? And Michael got to give his opinion on those contract negotiations. And Michael got to say what he wanted, basically saying Scottie was selfish, Scottie this, Scottie that. Then episode 4 focused primarily on Dennis Rodman and how Dennis Rodman went to Vegas, and Dennis Rodman was this, Dennis Rodman was that. Michael Jordan's, giving his opinion. What I want to know is, this documentary is very Michael Jordan centric.
Yeah.
And I actually wanted to get Scottie's opinion of what he thought about Michael retiring the first time. And I actually want to get Dennis Rodman's opinion of what he thought, Michael taking a trip during a playoff series, an Eastern Conference Championship playoff series, to go gamble. Well, my man D. Rodman just wanted to go to Vegas for a weekend.
Yeah, they limited Rodman a lot. They did.
You think that's purposely?
Yeah, I do. I think that they wanted to make this mostly about Jordan. And people have said this. Everything is pretty much in his view. So we're seeing everything pretty much in his eyes. So we heard him say that he's coming in at this certain time. But, I mean, listen, they have papers and people that saw him coming in 12 o'clock or after 12 o'clock in AC. So we're seeing it in his view. But, I mean, other people probably have a lot more opinion on that. But in terms of Scottie and when he retired, I'm hoping, because this week when they showed the documentary, it talks about Pippen coming into his own while he was retired and then him coming back. So I'm hoping they do talk to Scotty a little bit about him leaving.
I'm hoping Scotty says, man, yeah, fuck it. Michael was selfish. He left us. Oh, he can't
Left me
take the
alone,
media
man. He's a
scrutiny.
quitter.
He can't take the media scrutiny. You're Michael Jordan. That's what comes with it, right? I hope Scotty does say that. And I don't know why. No one has reached out to Dennis Rodman to get his opinion on Michael. Like, wow. What's
They're probably
ESPN
afraid of
doing?
what
Like,
he's
you
gonna say.
get Isaiah Thomas on there, but you can't get my man Dennis Rodman? Or is
They
Dennis
got Carmen
Rodman
Electra on there. They got they can't.
Get Dennis Rodman, dude. I want to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to the guy that Jordan ratted out to his wife and kids. Yeah.
Who's that? That was the dude, the golfer?
Yeah, when he looked at the camera, he was like, "Mom and Dad, he's an alcoholic."
Oh, shit. What?
You didn't see that after they won the championship and they were on the team plane. You didn't see that? They were on the team plane and he was like, "Yeah, Mom and Daddy's alcoholic," because he was like, "Don't record this. Don't record."
Oh, all right. That was in episode 4 when dude was saying, you know, I'm a happy man. He's like, this guy right here can't be a married man.
Yeah, never
Ladies
at home,
everywhere.
never at home. Mike completely ratted him out. I want to hear from him talk about it.
All right. What was the dude's name? It wasn't Jason Caffey. Who was it?
No, that was it was the small forward on that time. I forgot what his name was. He was like Scotty Burrell.
Scotty who?
Scotty Burrell.
Man, so many people you don't even know that got championships because of Michael. Crazy. 2 more points on the documentary and we'll move on. First, that 93 season, obviously the toughest team that they faced was the Knicks. Phil Jackson said that.
Yeah.
I think episodes 7 and 8 are going to focus on another squad that actually tested the Bulls in 98. And you know who they are, Pete. They're the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah.
They took you guys to Game 7. As a Bulls fan, do you recall that series? And were you nervous at all in that series?
The only time I got nervous is when I went to Game 7. Because nobody had really pushed him to Game 7 until that point. So it was the only time I was like, you know what, we may actually get eliminated. But in my head, if I had to bet money on it, I would have still bet on the Bulls because they were at home. I still thought that they were the better team. And it's hard to not bet on Jordan when he has a game that he has to win. So I still thought they were going to win. But it was the only time a little slight bit of like, you know what, this is going to be a tough one came in there. Because Smits and Miller were on fire. And Reggie Miller got off for that push-off on Jordan when he hit that three to win the game anyway.
Oh, typical Bulls fan complaining about calls. Oh, my God. You got every call from 93, from 91, 92, 93, all the way to 98.
That one was blatant, though. That one was blatant.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, man. Where's Hob when you need him? Where's Hob when you need him? I'm over here.
Yeah, come on the show, producer.
Two Bulls fans. No one wants to defend me here, but it's all right. This is your 5 weeks. This is your 5 weeks. I'm going to let you have it. Dave, Michael Jordan ruined a lot of legacies. And I'm not talking about his. I'm talking about other players. If you could pick one player from that era that probably should have had a better legacy if Michael Jordan was around, who would it be?
Oof, good question.
You better say the guy, Dave.
Huh?
You better say the guy I'm thinking about.
I'm gonna say Clyde Drexler, man.
Oh, come on.
That's so easy,
Clyde
dude.
Drexler?
Come on, he won 2 in
He
Houston.
ended up getting one. He didn't.
Oh, he won 1. He didn't win the second one, the back-to-back.
Yeah.
Was he on that team? Okay.
Yeah, he won the first. He won one, but still.
I mean, I think one of the things was, and I think that's what upset Mike when you know people try to compare them, and he said it in the documentary. Like he took offense to the comparison between him and Clyde. I don't know, man. For some reason, I remember the battles between the Trailblazers and the Bulls. For some reason, they I don't know why they stuck into my memory. As a kid and as being a Bulls fan, I thought Clyde could have been bigger. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he ruined his legacy, but I definitely think that he kind of chipped away at it. I think Clyde Drexler could have been such a bigger star and probably could have had more championships if it wasn't for Michael Jordan. So
I'm not gonna lie to you, Dave. You're probably the only person that think it's Clyde Drexler. So I like that though. I like it. It's different. What about you, Pete?
That's
I
always
think it's
in my head though for some reason. Those battles that they had, I don't know why. I mean, it's just I've always thought about them as a kid, and I still can remember them to this day.
I think easily by far to me. Now, obviously, the Knicks fans are going to say, I think most of them will say Ewing, but I think to me, the biggest person that got screwed by Michael Jordan them all the time, Charles Barkley. I think Charles Barkley is so underrated with all the stuff that he's done. If you look at his career stat, I mean, he's got won a league MVP. He's averaged 25 points, 10 rebounds. Like, he's done everything you're supposed to do. He's led his team to a championship. As you said, won 2 games in Chicago in the championship. And he's always known as just an okay player. He's known more as an announcer to some of these kids now. They don't talk about him as when he was a player and how good he was, that he was a 6'6" guy who could get 10 rebounds a game, shoot threes, dribble like he was a point guard. He was so good when he played, and that's even just the Suns. We're not even talking about when he was the Sixers. So he had such a great career that I think could have been so much more if he got that one championship.
I mean, I think Charles Barkley is definitely up there. If not one, he's 1A. I think ultimately it comes as a bias as a Knicks fan, but there's also theories. There's also reasons behind it. I think it's ultimately Patrick Ewing. Patrick, as a college player, went to 3 finals in 3 NCAA finals. Like, that's unheard of. In '81, he lost to James Worthy and Michael Jordan. Ironically enough, '83 he beats Olajuwon in Houston, and then '84 he loses to Villanova. So right there, right off the bat, Patrick Ewing is known as one of the greatest college basketball players of all time. They rigged the lottery for the Knicks, and he was supposed to be the savior. He was supposed to bring a championship from the '70s, and he ultimately didn't do that. And I know Charles Oakley's been in the media saying that, you know, if Patrick was a smarter basketball player, we would have beat the Bulls. Like, he was always shooting fadeaways and double teams. He was never looking for the open guy. I think ultimately Patrick Ewing is one of the greatest 50 players of all time. But because he doesn't have that championship, he's always going to be looked at as a failure in New York, even though I don't think about it like that. Like, I love Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing is my guy. But to New York sports fans, it's like, damn, that's Patrick Ewing. The dude that was supposed to bring us a chip never did. And ultimately, Charles Oakley said it in the interview. He was like, the reason we lost to the Bulls every time is because they had Michael Jordan and we had Patrick Ewing. Charles Oakley's a spiteful guy, isn't he?
Yeah. I got a question for you, Vic. Like, most people consider Kareem, Wilt, Russell, Shaq, Olajuwon as like the top 5 centers of all time. Then after that, maybe like David Robinson. Do you think Ewing would have been talked about in those top 7 if he had won championship?
Oh, absolutely. I think if he just won one and he brought a championship to New York, you know what it is to win a championship here. Like, it's totally different than it is anywhere else. And if he would have just brought one, especially to a franchise like the Knicks, who have been starved, who were terrible in the 80s and had good 90s teams, but just never got over that Michael Jordan hump, it would have been magnified. Like, the Garden was, like, the best place to play. Like, even Michael Jordan said he loved playing there. The energy in the Garden, even though the Knicks suck, is always high. Like, I think the Knicks have literally the best fans in the world. Like, that's just not being biased. Like, they're 11-50, and they show up every night, and they might boo the owner, but they show up every night. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. I think Patrick Ewing would be right up there with the top 5 centers if he just won one. All he had to do was win one.
And I'll give you one example of how one championship can change the entire way you look at a team in postseason. The New York Rangers. The New York Rangers won one title in 54 years, and everybody remembers everybody from that team. That team was so special that they're a Hall of Famers in everybody's eyes because they won that one title in MSG.
And not only that, just to like jump off that point with the Rangers, Mark Messier won 4 Stanley Cups in Edmonton. No one gives a shit about them Stanley Cups. They're like, the one he won in '94 is 100 times more important than the one he won in '94. Yeah. Like, who else was on that team? Craig McTavish won in Edmonton. Graves. No one cares. Adam Graves won in Edmonton. It's like, damn, Edmonton had like the greatest dynasty since like the Canadians, and no one really cares. It's the one he won in New York. Like, no one really says, "Oh man, remember '88 with Messier and Gretzky, and remember that team?" No one even talks about that with Gretzky either. That he won in Edmonton.
They really don't.
That's crazy. That's so crazy. But yeah, like episode 7 and 8 this Sunday. Of course, we're going to talk about it. But I'm looking forward to that Pacers series and how they dive into it. But
Yeah.
again, I just hope someone reaches out to Dennis Rodman, gets him on the phone. I want to hear what he has to say. I hope Scotty in episode 7 and 8 says what he has to say, talks his shit. I hope he does.
You know
Balls
what
out.
I wonder? I'm going to wonder if they show the Hugh Hollins play with Hubert Davis, the long three.
Oh my God! Typical Bulls.
Listen. But listen.
One call goes against you.
Hold on. But I got a
This
question.
is insane.
I got a question about this. So that was the year that Jordan retired. He didn't play that year. Scotty was top 5 MVP candidate that year. And he gets the Bulls back that far to where they're playing in the Eastern Conference Championship versus the New York Knicks. In a game deciding play, they call a foul on Hubert, and he gets the foul shots and wins the game. Now, the question I have to you is, if they didn't call that foul and the Bulls end up going to the championship, how is Scotty looked at now? And how is Jordan looked at knowing that they can get back to the championship without Jordan?
I don't think Jordan would have came back at that point, honestly.
Wow. Who does the nigga win? We don't need you.
Yeah, I mean, unless he had gambling debts, he would have came back. Oh, shots fired.
Oh, wow.
But perfect. Shifting a little bit. What was that, Dave? My bad.
Typical Knicks fan, bro. Typical
Oh
Knicks
my
fan.
God. I've let you guys get off all your shots, and I just said one thing. And listen, Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time. Obviously, there's no debate. When someone says Kobe, when someone says LeBron, I'm in there arguing for Michael, even though he broke my heart millions of times. So much respect to Michael. We'll tune in to episode 7 and 8, obviously. Shifting gears a little bit, I just wanted to touch on one thing that stuck out to me, because ESPN always does these stupid, too early, top 25. Mel Kiper has his mock draft already out for next year.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Stupid.
Peace boy, he already has his first round mock draft out there. And obviously everyone's going to be looking at Trevor Lawrence next year, right? That's the dude. So
Sunshine.
there was a debate on ESPN. I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it real quick. Had Trevor Lawrence had a waiver or was able to get out this year, do you think Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence would have won this year, Dave? What are your thoughts?